Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by Smithville Fiber Internet, streaming TV, home security and automation in Southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Mallard Grodner Attorneys providing legal services to clients and the community. Understanding, expertise, results. Bloomington and Indianapolis. LawMG.com. IU Alumni Association connecting IU's network of alumni and sharing the Indiana spirit through scholarships, advocacy, and volunteerism. Alumni.iu.edu. IU Center for Rural Engagement extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnership with communities and organizations. Rural.indiana.edu. And by WTIU members. Thank you.
Coming up on Indiana Newsdesk. Owen County passed a festival ordinance this week that prohibits events on the courthouse square. It was a controversial move that many say targets the community's annual Pride Festival.
I think that you guys rushed this ordinance through thinking you were going to get it through without pushback from the people.
Next, more from the heated commissioners' meeting. Medical debt is a burden on many Hoosiers.
I wanted to pay, my medical bills. I didn't want to be that deadbeat person, but I couldn't afford to pay that.
Ahead, churches are stepping in to help some people get a fresh start. And Indiana made national headlines dozens of times this year, from the passing of 2 Indiana giants to GM union negotiations and a number of teacher protests. Coming up, we look back at the biggest stories of 2019. Plus the latest news headlines from across the state right now on Indiana Newsdesk. Welcome to Indiana Newsdesk. I'm Joe Wren. The Owen County Commissioners introduced and adopted their revised festival ordinance this week. The commissioners did not allow the public to comment on the long-awaited ordinance, despite the fact many in the county think it could hurt business and targets the local LGBTQ group. As Mitch Legan reports, the controversy isn't dying down.
Discussion between the commissioners and public turned to shouting for the second time in 3 meetings after the commissioners went through with their controversial festival ordinance.
Which is very different than what you posted previously.
Please, I'm going to make a motion to clear this room if we don't get the respect that we're required to hold these public meetings.
Show some. Earn some.
Then I'll clear it from everybody.
Earn some respect.
I sent an email, you come to my office a week and a half ago, and I addressed you about this, and I addressed the county attorney about the same thing, and you didn't respond to my email.
The commissioners passed the ordinance less than 12 hours after making it available to the public on Monday morning. The ordinance, which is now law, has been unpopular with many residents because it prohibits anyone from using the Owen County Courthouse during a special event. And on top of that, Spencer Pride, the local LGBTQ organization, says the ordinance directly targets them because it still contains a clause that prohibits sexually explicit materials and nudity.
Now, Jeff, this is irresponsible on your behavior, really. You're not letting the people input. You put this out to the people this morning. We got to read it again. You've made some fantastic improvements to this, but it's not where it needs to be to keep the people happy. You could be the good guys in this instead of everybody thinking that we're a county full of jerks.
Back in August, the commissioners proposed updating the county's special events ordinance after they said they had received a petition from taxpayers complaining about festival costs. But that petition turned out to be form letters describing the Spencer Pride Fest as overly sexual and inappropriate for children.
I think that you guys rushed this ordinance through thinking you were going to get it through without pushback from people. People started to push back, and you still just pushed and rushed it through without stopping. You create commissions for everything to get public input, but you wouldn't do it on this one.
County Sheriff Sam Hobbs said at Monday's meeting that he had told the commissioners they had to let the public know beforehand if they were not going to allow for public comment. But they made no such announcement. Hobbs encouraged the public to attend the commissioners' next meeting, which will be on January 6th.
And reporter Mitch Legan joins us now for a little bit more. So, Mitch, you've been following this for quite a while.
Yes.
How did this start?
Okay, so back in August, the commissioners basically said they wanted to redo the county's festival ordinance because
they got what they described as a petition from taxpayers, basically concerned about having to foot the bill for these festivals. Well, some residents asked for a copy of that petition, and that petition turned out to be a bunch of form letters from this anonymous Facebook group that was basically complaining about the Spencer Pride Fest, calling it overly sexual, inappropriate for children. And so Spencer Pride, the local LGBTQ group, thinks this ordinance change directly targets them.
So the commissioners didn't allow for public comment. Besides, this is the original draft?
Yes, so they didn't allow for public comment on Monday, but they did allow for public comment when they originally proposed the draft, which was in the beginning of November. And basically, so what happened there was the public kind of sounded off on this ordinance. They pointed out a lot of, I guess, legal problems with it. Like it originally said that the commissioners had final say on all events in Owen County, not just on county property. So if you and I wanted to have a barbecue in Owen County, they could have decided to stop that. They also said that a bunch of the fees were probably more in line with South Bend and Bloomington, not Spencer, which has 2,000 people there. And so basically what they did is they took that ordinance back, fixed those things up, fixed up a lot of those loose ends, and brought it back on Monday as essentially the same thing with cleaner language. And so they made that available to the public at 8 a.m. on Monday, and about 30 people showed up for this meeting. They passed it without any public comment, and people are upset about it.
So bottom line, what does this mean for the community and the events?
And so now the Owen County Courthouse is off limits for all special events in the future. And so that means a lot of these event organizers, they're kind of scrambling, trying to figure out where they're going to get electricity, water, bathrooms, and stuff like that. So festivals are still allowed on the courthouse square, not in the courthouse, and that's going to make it much more difficult for these event organizers to hold something. And so Spencer Pride, no longer going to be on the courthouse square. Christmas at the Square, no longer going to be on the courthouse at the square. And Rev 20, which is their Christian music festival, probably not going to be on the courthouse square because it's just going to be much more difficult for these events to go on. And a lot of local business owners think this is going to hurt them because those events bring people in, they spend money there, and then these businesses do a lot better. Jamie Sweeney, who owns the Juniper Art Gallery, she said Christmas at the Square was her second best day of the year.
Mitch, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. I really appreciate it.
1 in 6 Americans say they have outstanding medical bills. It's a crippling problem. According to a recent study by Health Affairs, medical debt nationally totals more than $80 million. Many of the Democratic candidates running for president have proposed reforms to the healthcare system that would reduce or eliminate most patient costs. Adam Pinsker reports on how churches and nonprofits are coming together to help people pay off their bills and get back on track.
I can take it back to 2010 and maybe...
Northview Church Pastor Steve Poe usually asks his congregation to donate at least $1 4 times per year to benefit a worthy cause.
So this time I asked our congregation if they would give $3 or $4. And so we collected $40,000. And so with that $40,000, we were able to pay off $7.8 million in medical debt.
They did it through the help of a company called RIP Medical Debt, which uses donations to purchase medical debt from a collection agency.
And then we send a letter to the people saying this debt for these accounts totaling this much is no longer owed.
Sonia Brown owed $15,000 in medical bills until she got a letter from RIP saying her debt was forgiven.
You know how people feel when they hit the lottery? Just overwhelming and so excited.
Brown's debt piled up over the course of a decade as she battled with diabetes and a series of strokes.
I would get sick at work, had to get sent home, or get sick, I couldn't go in. So my points started building up, so they was either gonna let me go, so I just went on and quit.
With Brown out of work and on disability and her husband working to pay the mortgage, paying down her medical debt was impossible.
I wanted to pay, my medical bills. I didn't want to be that deadbeat person, but I couldn't afford to pay that. I couldn't even afford to pay $10 a month.
RIP says 50% of all debt that ends up with collection agencies is from unpaid medical bills, a trend that's unlikely to change because insurance premiums and copays continue to rise.
Now it's the pushing away from responsibility of the insurance company or the government to the person.
Poe says Northview and its satellite campuses around central Indiana have helped an estimated 6,000 families climb out of medical debt. Other smaller churches around southern Indiana have also pitched in donations over the past year, but the debt problem won't be solved overnight.
Medical debt has become a national crisis. It's a problem in America today. and people struggle with it. In fact, out of all the bankruptcies in America, 60% of them are caused by medical debt.
Brown says this holiday season she's scraping together whatever she has to help pay it forward after so many people stepped up to help her.
It don't take a lot of money, because if everybody do it, put in $10, $15, $20, that adds up quick, and it helps somebody.
For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Adam Pinsker.
According to a 2016 report from the CDC, nearly 3/4 of Americans aged 20 to 65 say they did have insurance but still couldn't pay their medical bills. Well, now for news headlines and the latest on this week's top stories. Indiana's Attorney Disciplinary Commission wants Attorney General Curtis Hill's law license suspended for 2 years. 4 women accuse Hill of sexual misconduct, which prompted the State Disciplinary Commission to file a complaint against Hill. A hearing officer presided over the hearing on that complaint in October. Now the two sides have filed proposals on what they'd like to happen next. Hill's team argues he should not be suspended because the incident happened at a private event that has no connection to Hill's job. There's no timetable for the decision. A new study indicates the number of pharmacies stocked with a narcotic overdose antidote, naloxone, has almost doubled in the last 3 years. Indiana University researchers say in 2018, over 90% of pharmacies surveyed stocked naloxone, and 3/4 of those pharmacies dispensed the drug to patrons. Experts say it's important to get the drug into the hands of community members, even if they're not opioid users.
It's not necessarily the individual that's using my OD, it's the individual that is with that person. So our Surgeon General, Jerome Adams, who's a Hoosier, recommended that every individual in the United States carry naloxone.
Eldridge says they used data pulled from over 100 pharmacies in the state that responded to the census in 2016 and 2018. The research comes after a statewide order in 2016 that allowed pharmacies to dispense naloxone without a medical exam. She says despite that standing order, some pharmacies and many community members were initially hesitant to embrace the drug's widespread usage. Well, the Indiana woman who killed 3 children after passing a stopped school bus last year has been sentenced to 4 years in prison. Alicia Shepard was also sentenced to 3 years home detention and 3 years probation. Her driver's license will be suspended for 10 years. Since the incident, the Indiana legislature imposed stricter fines and punishments for illegally passing a school bus. The Bloomington City Council unanimously voted to adopt the amended Unified Development Ordinance at Wednesday night's special session. There have been nearly a dozen meetings since October to discuss and amend the zoning guide. Councilmember Allison Chopra urged future city councils to be more active in keeping the UDO up to date.
It can be reviewed in small steps over a course of years, and it can be revisited one item at a time.
Now the city will put the finishing touches on the updated neighborhood map. That process should be done by June. After that, planners will officially rezone the city. Indiana outperformed expectations in every major tax collection category last month. Sales, individual, and corporate income taxes all bested projections, combining to set revenues more than $50 million ahead of expected levels. And November's collections extended some very positive streaks. Sales taxes have been above target 4 of the fiscal year's 5 months. Individual and corporate income taxes have exceeded expectations in all 5 months. And together, they help put Indiana nearly $200 million ahead of its budget plan. The state is collecting roughly what it expected in gambling taxes through the first 3 months of legalized sports betting. Hoosiers placed $147 million in sports bets in November, the most of any month so far. Industry experts say the excitement will likely die down and sports betting revenue will normalize. Bloomington's new senior center will keep its doors open through next year. As Tyler Lake reports, the city came up with the funds to keep the center operating.
The Enright Center East opened 6 months ago to fill a need for seniors in Bloomington. The center is part of Area 10 Agency on Aging, which has a larger facility in Ellettsville meant to serve multiple communities. But many seniors said they missed the former senior center near downtown Bloomington, so Enright East was opened in the College Mall to give Bloomington seniors an easy-to-reach destination. It opened as a pilot program only a couple days a week. But Mayor John Hamilton says it's been a success.
We've more than doubled the visits here monthly, from under 200 to almost 700 individual visits in the month of October.
Hamilton says the city found the $20,000 needed to keep the center operating 2 days a week. He joined former Bloomington Mayor Tommy Allison, who stressed its value to the community.
Seniors want to be engaged, active, and healthy. And the Enright East will help us to do so.
And so far, they're doing just that. John Chafin is what you might call a power user of Enright East.
On a day like this, Tuesday, normally, I would be in 4 classes all during the day into the afternoon, and I love it very much.
But he says it's the human connection that keeps bringing him back.
One of the things is a lot of wonderful people that I've met here. I mean, they're very dedicated to this, and I really enjoy just being around them.
Enright East is open on Tuesdays and Thursdays between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. It offers fitness programs like yoga and balance classes, and it also serves as a meeting place for seniors with painting, games, and puzzles available. Officials say they hope to add another day, eventually keeping the center open 3 days a week. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Tyler Lake.
An elementary school near Terre Haute has a new addition to one of their hallways this year called a sensory path. It's a series of stickers on the walls and floor to guide students through the short hallway and back again. Teacher Jennifer Simpson says some teachers have built the path into their daily routines.
You know, you're trying to teach math and you can see that that little one in the back is just not able to focus today, so you send him out for a lap on the sensory path and he comes back ready to work.
Simpson says the sensory path has excited students and teachers at the school. So much so, she says they plan to purchase another kit to put one on the asphalt outside. Indiana University's athletics director is retiring after nearly a decade to spend more time with his family. Fred Glass will leave at the end of the academic year. In a press conference this week, Glass spoke about the tough decision he had to make as athletic director.
You'll be criticized no matter what you do, so you might as well do the thing you think is right. You know, don't try to placate the mob. Don't try to avoid criticism. Do what you think is right. And if it turns out not to be right, at least you were trying to do the right thing.
3 teams and 195 individuals have won Big Ten championships since Glass arrived. This season, the women's basketball team achieved its highest ranking in program history, and the football team had its best season in 26 years. IU's graduation success rate among student athletes stands at 91%. In 2011, it was at 77%. McRobbie put together a 14-member search committee chaired by Bill Steffen, who chaired the committee that hired Glass. Coming up next on Indiana Newsdesk. ATVs and dirt bikes can get to places most vehicles can't. But officials at the Hoosier National Forest say some ATV riders are going places they aren't allowed. And we take a look at 2019 through the stories and events that shaped our coverage. These stories and more right here on Indiana Newsdesk.
The WTIU-WFYI News Team connects Indiana to the world. We bring you the top news of the day on radio, TV, and online. We round up the stories that have people talking each week and dig deep into the issues that affect your community the most. The WTIU-WFYI News Team is where you are and telling your story.
In a time of change, where can you find in-depth reporting and thoughtful analysis? Washington Week on PBS. Join moderator Robert Costa.
When I was at the Capitol this week, I encountered the same.
And a panel of award-winning journalists.
You're seeing a divided nation and you're seeing...
For insights and perspective.
Tonight there was a key development in the Senate.
You won't find anywhere else.
What a week.
Washington Week.
Welcome back to Indiana Newsdesk. Well, things like ATVs and dirt bikes aren't allowed in most public parks and trails in the state. Still, those vehicles are damaging Hoosier National Forest. Rebecca Thiel has this.
Probably a lot of them came through here initially, started making big ruts and mud holes and this kind of thing this way.
maybe some kind of obstacle got in their way, so they start going around this way, and a whole new area gets impacted.
Forest Supervisor Mike Chavez says these vehicles can leave big ruts. He says fixing these spots costs the Forest Service, and therefore taxpayers, thousands of dollars every year.
So when we're spending money fixing these problems, that's funds that we can't spend on better maintaining the actual trails that we have, or doing habitat work, or any kind of efforts like that. So it's a drain on resources.
But it also hurts fish and other aquatic life in streams and lakes near the forest. Forest hydrologist Chad Menke says ATVs and dirt bikes compact the soil and prevent plants from growing there. That means when a heavy rain comes, there's nothing to hold the soil in place, and it will send excess dirt into nearby waterways.
Once so much of the soil is moved, it just keeps eating and pretty much washing away the soil at a high rate.
Chavez says off-roaders in the Hoosier National Forest could face more than $200 in fines. He says people who see illegal off-roading or tire tracks in the forest should call the Forest Service. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Rebecca Thiel.
And tonight we're looking back on the biggest stories of 2019. There was plenty of conflict and controversy, but there were also stories of kindness and cooperation. Our videographer Zach Herndon has this year in review.
We wanted to make sure that we did all that we could to make sure that no other Hoosier families had to go through this.
This isn't an honored profession anymore because out in the community, I'd like to be valued.
And a moment like that calls for hopeful and audacious voices from communities like ours. And yes, it calls for a new generation of leadership in this country.
This is my town, this is my home, and I don't want to leave. I won't, because I demand that something be done.
I'm very blessed to be alive and home, and I owe a lot of gratitude to all the people who have been praying for me.
These people came before the people that are here, and they created a story, and those stories should be told, and they should linger on.
We're going to offer them help when they get inside this jail. We're going to start a rehab inside this jail. We're working with everybody that says they've got a solution to this problem of addiction.
We're exploring the past, present, and future of Bloomington with our new series called City Limits. You ask something about Bloomington that you're curious about, and then we work to find the answer.
A lot of lifelong residents I know are concerned about the concentration of population in downtown Bloomington, particularly in these big boxy apartment buildings.
If people show up and have reasonable discussions, I think we can come up with some solutions that don't have to demolish what we have and the good things that we have.
One of the downsides, I guess, of Bloomington's history is that we are still atoning for some of the mistakes that were made by previous generations.
Removing a president from office, taking him out of office and say you can no longer serve, that's a very serious matter.
I don't think that they truly understood the anger that the community was feeling about these vendors being at the market.
They're welcoming hateful rhetoric in our space, in our market space.
I absolutely want to see the courthouse open for events. It is the people's courthouse.
This ordinance for Spencer Main Street literally kicks Santa out of the courthouse.
We took many concessions back in 2009 to help make this company profitable. We went to bat for them, and it's time they come to bat for us too.
My most effective work really comes in good conversation and listening carefully, finding places where we agree.
I really today believe that every one of us deserves to be happy. We have the human right to be happy and to be free from anything that life or society imposes on us.
And join us for much more next year. Happy holidays.
Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by Smithville Fiber Internet, streaming TV, home security and automation in Southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Mallor Grodner Attorneys, providing legal services to clients and the community. Understanding, expertise, results. Bloomington and Indianapolis. lawmg.com. IU Alumni Association, connecting IU's network of alumni and sharing the Indiana spirit through scholarships, advocacy, and volunteerism. alumni.iu.edu. IU Center for Rural Engagement, extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnership with communities and organizations. rural.indiana.edu. And by WTIU members. Thank you.